Hello, everybody, and today we will be finishing up Artemis Fowl. Thank you for joining me. The ground was soft by the time-stop perimeter. Half a millennium's bad drainage from medieval walls had transformed the foundations into a virtual bog. So that is where mulch surfaced. The soft ground wasn't the only reason for choosing that exact spot. The other reason was the smell. A good tunnel dwarf can pick up the scent of gold through half a mile of granite bedrock. Mulch Diggums had one of the best noses in the business. The hover trolley floated virtually unguarded. Two of Retrieval's finest were stationed beside the recovered ransom, but at that moment they were having a little giggle at their stricken commander. "'E can't have half chuck it, can't, Chick?" Chick nodded, mimicking root-spewing technique. Chick Verbal's pantomime antics provided the best cover for a spot of pilfering. Mulch gave his tubes a clearing before clambering from the tunnel. The last thing he needed was for a sudden burst of gas to alert the LEP to his presence. He needn't have worried. He could have slapped Chick Verbal in the face with the wet stinkworm and the sprite wouldn't have noticed. In a matter of seconds, he had transformed 24 ingots into the tunnel. It was the easiest job he had ever pulled. Mulch had to stifle a giggle as he dropped the last 2 bars down the hole. Julius had really done him a favor, getting him involved in this whole affair. Things couldn't have worked out much better. He was as free as a bird, rich, and best of all, presumed dead. By the time the LEP realized the gold was missing, Mulch Diggums would be half a continent away, if they realized it all. The dwarf lowered himself to the ground. It would take several more trips to move his treasure trove, but it would be worth the delay. With this kind of money, he could take early retirement. He would have to completely disappear, of course, but a plan was already forming in his devious mind. He would live above ground for a spell, masquerade as a human dwarf with an aversion to light, perhaps buy a penthouse with thick blinds, in Manhattan perhaps, or Monte Carlo. It might seem odd, of course, a dwarf shutting himself away from the sun, but then again he would be an obscenely rich dwarf, and humans will accept any story, however outlandish, when there's something in it for them. Preferably something green that folds. Artemis could hear a voice calling his name. There was a face behind the voice, but it was blurred, hard to make out. His father, perhaps? "Father?" The world was strange in his mouth, unused, rusty. Artemis opened his eyes. Butler was leaning over him. "Artemis, you're awake." "Ah, Butler, it's you." Artemis got to his feet, head spinning with the effort. He expected Butler's hand at his elbow to steady him. It didn't come. Juliet was lying on the chaise lounge, dribbling into the cushions. Obviously, the draft hadn't been worn off yet. "It's just sleeping pills, Butler, harmless." The manservant's eyes had a dangerous glint. "Explain yourself." Artemis rubbed his eyes. "Later, Butler, I'm feeling a bit..." Butler stepped into his path. "Artemis, my sister is lying drugged on that couch. She was almost killed. So explain yourself now." Artemis realized that he'd been given an order. He considered being offended, then decided that perhaps Butler was right. He had gone too far. "I didn't tell you about the sleeping pill because you would fight them. It's only natural. And it was imperative to the plan that we go to sleep immediately." "The plan?" Artemis lowered himself into a comfortable chair. "The time field was the key to this whole affair. It's the LEP's ace in the hole. It's what made them unbeatable for all these years. Any incident can be contained. That and the biobomb make a formidable combination." "So why did we have to be drugged?" Artemis smiled. "Look out the window. Don't you see? They're gone. It's over." Butler glanced through the net curtains. The light was bright and clear, not a hint of blue. Nevertheless, the manservant was unimpressed. "They're gone for now. They'll be back tonight. I guarantee it." "No, that's against the rules. We beat them. That's it. Game over." Butler raised an eyebrow. "The sleeping pills?" "Artemis." "Not to be distracted, I see." Butler's answer was implacable silence. The sleeping pills. "Very well. I had to think of a way to escape the time field. I trawled through the book, but there was nothing, not a clue. The people themselves had not yet developed a way, so I went back to their Old Testament, back when their lives and ours were intertwined. You know the stories. Elves that made shoes during the night, sprites that cleaned houses, back when we coexisted to a certain extent. Magical favors in exchange for the fairy forts. The big one, of course, was Santa Claus." Butler's eyes nearly jumped out in front of his face. "Santa Claus?" Artemis raised his palms. I know. I was a tad skeptical myself, but apparently our little corporate image Santa Claus is not descended from a Turkish saint. He is a shadow of San de Claus, the third king of the Frond Elfin dynasty. He is known as San the Deluded. Not a great title as titles go. Admittedly, de Claus thought that the greed of the mud people in his kingdom could be assuaged by distributing lavish gifts. He would marshal all the great wizards once a year and have them throw up a great time stop over the vast regions. Flocks of sprites would be sent out to deliver the presents while the humans were asleep. Of course it didn't work. Human greed can never be assuaged, especially not by gifts. Butler frowned. What if the humans, what if we had woken up? Ah, yes, excellent question. The heart of the matter. Humans wouldn't wake up. That is the nature of the time stop. Whatever your state of consciousness going in, that's how you stay. Humans can neither wake up nor fall asleep. You must have noticed the fatigue in your bones these last few hours, yet your mind would not let you sleep. Butler nodded. Things were getting clearer in a roundabout sort of way. So my theory was the only way to escape the time field was to simply fall asleep. Our own consciousness was all that kept us imprisoned. You risked an awful lot in a theory, Artemis. Not just a theory, we did have a test subject. Who? Ah, Angeline. Yes, my mother. Because of her narcotic-induced slumber, she moved with the natural order of time, unhindered by the time field. If she had not, I would have simply surrendered to the LEP and submitted to their mind wipe. Butler snorted. He doubted it. So, because we could not fall asleep naturally, I simply administered all of us a dose of Mother's pills. Simple. You cut it pretty fine, though. Another minute. Agreed, the boy nodded. Things were tense there at the end. It was necessary in order to double bluff the LEP. He paused so that Butler could process the information. Well, am I forgiven? Butler sighed. On the chaise lounge, Juliet snored like a drunken sailor. He smiled suddenly. Yes, Artemis, all is forgiven. Just one thing. Yes? Never again. Fairies are too human. You're right, said Artemis, the crow's feet deepening around his eyes. Never again. We shall restrict ourselves to more tasteful ventures in the future. Legal, I can't promise. Butler nodded. It was close enough. Now, young master, shouldn't we check on your mother? Artemis grew paler, if that was possible. Could the captain have reneged on her promise, which she would certainly be entitled to? Yes, I suppose we should. Let Juliet rest. She's earned it. He cast his eyes upward along the stairs. It had been too much to hope for that he could trust the fairy. After all, he held her captive against her will. He berated himself silently. Imagine parting with all those millions for the promise of a wish. Oh, the gullibility. Then the loft door opened. Butler drew his weapon instantly. Artemis, behind me, intruders. The boy waved him away. No, Butler, I don't think so. His heart pounded in his ears. Blood pulsed in his fingertips. Could it be? Could it possibly be? A figure appeared on the stairs, waist-right in a toweled robe, her hair wet from the shower. Artie, she called. Artie, are you there? Artemis wanted to answer. He wanted to race up the grand stairway, arms outstretched, but he couldn't. His cerebral functions had deserted him. Angeline Fowl descended, one hand resting lightly on the banister. Artemis had forgotten how graceful his mother was. Her bare feet skipped over the carpeted steps, and soon she was standing before him. Morning, darling, she said brightly as though it were just another day. Mother, stammered Artemis. Well, give me a hug. Artemis stepped into his mother's embrace. It was warm and strong. She was wearing perfume. He felt like the boy he was. I'm sorry, Artie, she whispered into his ear. Sorry for what? For everything. For the last few months. I haven't been myself. But things are going to change. Time to stop living in the past. Artemis felt a tear in his cheek. He wasn't sure whose tear it was. And I don't have a present for you. A present? Said Artemis. Of course, sang his mother, spinning him around. Don't you know what day it is? Day? It's Christmas Day, you silly boy. Christmas Day. Presents are traditional, are they not? Yes, but Artemis, traditional. Sandy Claus. And look at this place, drab as a mausoleum. Butler? The manservant hurriedly pocketed his cigar. Yes, ma'am. Get on the phone to Brown Thomas, the platinum set number. Reopen my account. Tell Helene I want a Yuletide makeover, the works. Yes, ma'am, the works. Oh, and wake up Juliet. I want my things moved into the main bedroom. The attic is far too dusty. Yes, ma'am, right away, ma'am. Angeline Fowl linked her son's arm. Now, Artie, I want to know everything. First of all, what happened here? Remodeling, said Artemis. The old doorway was riddled with damp. Angelina frowned, completely unconvinced. I see. And how about school? Have you decided on a career? While his mouth answered these everyday questions, Artemis' mind was in turmoil. He was a boy again. His life was going to change utterly. His plans would have to be much more devious than usual if they were to escape his mother's attention, but it would be worth it. Angeline Fowl was wrong. She had brought him a Christmas present. And now I will share with you the epilogue. Now that you have reviewed the case file, you must realize what a dangerous creature this Fowl is. There is a tendency to romanticize Artemis, to attribute to him qualities that he does not possess. The fact that he used his wish to heal his mother is not a sign of affection. He did it simply because the social services were already investigating his case, and it was only a matter of time before he was put into care. He kept the existence of the people quiet only so that he could continue to exploit them over the years, which he did on several occasions. His one mistake was leaving Captain Short alive. Holly became the LEP's foremost expert in the Artemis Fowl cases and was invaluable in the fight against the people's most feared enemy. This fight was to continue across several decades. Ironically, the greatest triumph for both protagonists was the time they were forced to cooperate during the Goblin insurgents, but that's another story. Report compiled by Dr. J. Argan B. Syke for the LEP Academy files. Details are 94% accurate, 6% unavoidable extrapolation. The end. And also in this book, I want to mention to you that there is a key to the Gnomish alphabet. And you might think, well, why is there a key to the Gnomish alphabet? And that's because on every page along the bottom, there is a secret message. And what that message is, I will not share with you. But you can get some secret information about Artemis Fowl and his case, and connect you to his world if you get your hands on this book. And hopefully the library will be open soon and you can take this book out, and we'll all be looking forward to the movie coming out hopefully later this month. All right, everybody, thank you for joining me for this reading of Artemis Fowl, and hopefully I'll see you again at the library very soon. Bye.